everybody. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And this is the DRC meeting for Evolution Labs. Your lead reviewer is actually Troy and Parker, so they're going to be tag teaming it today. And the purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. If at the end of this meeting, you do not think you have all the information you need in order to resubmit within the time frame that the typical resubmittal time frame, let's talk about it then. But for now, let's try to get there. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So I will turn it over to Parker.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to Josh.
Don't turn it over.
Just so everybody know the structure of the review, Parker's handling the sketch plan and site plan. I'm handling the preliminary plan. So you got the comments at this point. I think the way we'll structure the meeting, we'll start with the transportation comments. Then we'll go to the parks, and then we'll work with the urban design team on their comments. So we can start with the roadway improvements and go from there. If that works best for everybody, or we can talk about the loading dock, whichever.
No, let's start with roadway improvements. Yeah, sounds great. I don't know, Matt, if you want to, we've had some kind of email correspondence going back and forth over the last 24 hours, specifically about the request for some offsite improvements, bike lanes, Grand Park, and one other.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk to DOT about that, but
yeah,
for frontage improvements, because we want to nail down the design and all those details. I think we could talk about that today. I don't think we really need to worry about the offsite stuff. We can work with DOT on that.
Well, DOT is here, so.
I know, but it's sort of a separate issue from the design. It's more of like whose responsibility is it for the cost.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess in regards to the design, is there a particular street we want to start with that y'all have like concerns with at first? Because we can kind of just work our way.
Whatever you wanted, yeah, we'll work through them all, I guess.
So did y'all see the attachment for the preliminary plan, like this document, or sorry, I'm not sure. I did want to mention that we also we are definitely excited about this plan coming in. It's got work with the ZTA and then cables that necessarily go through. So this is, we're in support of the biotech industry, and I think I said, we're all on the same page. Playing for, so we're definitely excited for it to come in, and you'll see that us working that pathway forward. Put that out there instead of just jumping right into the details.
So sorry, I must admit, this document here that's up on the screen, this was included in what was sent back?
Yeah, I uploaded it. It's an upload document under the preliminary plan. So if you haven't seen it, basically it's using just showing the cross section and showing the details of each right of way. But except for Banneker wasn't in there, but we will be able to provide that one.
Okay.
As well. So
yeah, that'd be helpful. I mean, from maybe taking a step back for a minute. So these cross sections here, right? I mean, Old Georgetown, Banneker Street, Grand Park Avenue, right? It's part of the Western Workaround. All that streetscape is currently constructed, right? Like on Old Georgetown, there is a bike lane. I don't know if from curb to property line, if that's currently reflected, but is that essentially your comment? Is that, all the improvements that were just put in as part of the Western Workaround, you want us to change as part of our application to match these cross sections? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
So when we made our comments, we took into account the Western Workaround. So a lot of the comments are curb and to your property line, or at least with Grand Park, we're looking at, we're not necessarily asking you to move the curb out. What we're saying is repurposing areas that are within the Western Workaround. So cutting it out. For at least Old Georgetown, we're asking you to construct the breezeway. So So essentially what we're asking you is to provide this bikeway facility here. Currently, I think there's just a asphalt path.
Right,
And then I think you got,
at the street, there's stanchions or whatever, striping, running up the street.
so what we're asking you to do is to provide the the planning buffer or tree panel, bike, the breezeway that's part of the countywide master plan. And then we're showing a bench here, but essentially a sidewalk condition into your frontage is what we're asking for, at least for this. And this is consistent with other areas along Old Georgetown. So we're basically asking you to provide that missing piece on this area.
So it's called the breezeway. What part of this is called the breezeway?
It's the actual facility of the bikeway. I think that's, if I'm saying that accurately.
Yeah, that's right.
The one in the street, not
No.
the entire thing.
The actual 4 and 4,
Yeah.
the 8-foot halfway is what.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So to the, closer to the property line from the trees, the buffer in,
Yeah, so,
yeah,
so
not
essentially,
out.
yeah, essentially this is the area telling you that, or we're asking you to construct this part of your program.
Right. So the 14 feet, just to be clear, plus the sidewalk area.
And I'm not sure the,
Did they even issue comments? I didn't see at State Highway. Maybe I missed it. Huh?
I don't think they mentioned anything about the bikeway improvements.
Okay.
They definitely had comments in there. I'm not sure the actual details of what they had, but they had a couple of comments, so they can implement plan in the site plan. I can figure out which ones they said.
They gave us like a preliminary approval for the access to the internal street. They were okay with that. But otherwise, I don't think this changes like our building placement or dedication. It's just a matter of making the improvements along the frontage.
Yeah, as long as the dedication matches, yeah, whatever the curb to property line is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're asking for any dedication. So if there's within these improvements, if it's not being accommodated, let us know.
Yeah.
Especially on Old Georgetown, we believe you have the right of way.
We'll double check it. We'll double check the right of way widths and make sure we accommodate all that. Okay.
Yeah, Chris, we did get this. This is Ian at VICA. We did get this document and we do have it. And I'll take a look at what we've got from the Stantec plans to make sure that we've got these things. And if not, we'll show them. I'm pretty sure we have the bike lane and the 3-foot area already reflected. We just may need to label them.
Got it. Okay.
I'm gonna jump to Grand Park, because we don't have Banneker in there. But essentially, I think what you're showing in the cross section reflects what we want on Banneker. I'll jump back and kind of speak to where the I get reallocation of like, or aligning the curb bump out with the open
Yes.
space. Once
Yeah.
we get to the urban design.
Yeah.
So at Grand Park frontage, we just showed this is like the existing condition. Really what we're looking for is to repurpose this travel lane into a bikeway facility. So let me just show. So basically what we're looking for is that 11-foot travel lane with that, I guess, this extra space that's in that travel lane to be repurposed into a bikeway facility and a planning strip. And so we are asking for you to extend that down to Marinelli. It's past your frontage. And so I know that's part of the discussion later on. Essentially, that's what we're looking for this facility to be extended down to. But again, what I was saying before, within the Western Workaround, so you should be at curve from the existing frontage of the Western Workaround, and this is that, essentially that travel lane.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think we already reached out to DOT. We'll talk about the off-site stuff through them, but I mean, our position is that's what the special taxing district is for off-site improvements. We agree that we have to make the frontage improvements up.
Okay.
Okay, with the frontage improvement, like I said, we'll jump back to Banneker in a later document. I don't think we have any issues with any of the access points, at least from that private road. The comment I had was that you don't necessarily need to parcel that road out. It can just be a unparceled road as a private drive.
Mhm.
You can kind of figure out which one works best for your work program. But I think for our purposes, we can accept it as a private drive.
That's helpful
Okay,
because it gives us more flexibility. And I think I talked to Rebecca and she said, we just need to work on the design and then we don't have to have the plat and all the, deal with all the standards of public streets.
I would like to say that if you can align it better with the driveway across the street even further. Because I think when it was misaligned completely, they were talking about putting in a concrete curb and making a right in, right out so that you didn't have those conflicts. So if we could align it a little bit better.
Yeah, that was our intent, Rebecca, was to align that with the exit for the garage across the street.
Okay.
So we'll take another look at that and make sure we're aligning it as best we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, our hope there is that we could get, we could turn left, I guess, to head north on Grand Park Avenue out of the private drive.
Yeah, and so we don't have a problem with that. We just wanted to align. It's almost there. If you
Right.
can just nudge it a little further and make it
Okay.
align better.
Technical term, we'll nudge it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I'm very technical when it comes to engineering, so.
Okay.
We're talking about this side, right?
Yes,
That's what we're talking
right. Okay.
Hey, Rebecca, this is Ian at Vika again. There's only one lane coming outbound from that garage. That would mean we'd have to move that road a pretty substantial amount to the north.
See what you can do. I think I'll have to get somebody else to look at it as well before we can say it's okay.
All right.
Ian, do
I
you have
assume
the
we're,
line?
we're already pinched on that building 5 footprint and then with stormwater management and other things, but we'll definitely take a look.
We have the line work we need to look at that, right, Ian?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great.
I think that covers at least the access points, the frontage.
Did we
So-
talk about Banneker access?
Oh, I was gonna jump, or at least you're mentioning the loading dock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna jump to now.
Sure, just so
Oh,
you
sorry.
know, Billy just sent over email the cross-section for Banneker. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe
Oh.
Billy could share his screen and so that see it. I don't know if Billy's on the call.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
think we were changing Banneker, right? Or are we proposing to change Banneker?
Now, it was going by the existing cross-section.
Right.
All the lane widths and the parking. The only comment we wanted was for, I think some of the parallel parking in front of the Muse area or that green space area between the buildings to be removed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull up that cross-section?
I think it would be helpful just since we're all here to see it. I know it sounds like it's not changing dramatically, but it is.
Okay.
It's cutting out. It's been doing.
Bob's image is too big.
I think so too.
So yeah, this is what's out there and it's going to stay.
Yeah, because there's no bike lanes on Banneker, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. There's no proposed bike lanes, like the bike master plan doesn't call for bike lanes on Banneker.
Not that I'm aware.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
And this is the applicant side over here.
On the right.
And this 10-foot sidewalk is already in on the opposite side.
And we're fine bumping the curb out to take out those parking spaces. I think it actually helps kind of like, I think what you guys are getting at, to try to align our through block connection with, you know, the VOB Silverstone site across the street. Because I think when we were placing that, we were trying to avoid like a curb inlet or something.
There
that's
was an
over
inlet, yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But if we bump it out, that gives us a little bit more room to kind of make that work. So we can certainly address that. Okay.
Jump back and share the screen.
Before we move off of Old Georgetown real quick, Troy, you made a comment about undergrounding utilities on Old Georgetown. You're talking about the telecom lines that are over there, correct?
I believe yeah, I guess it's just a general comment, just in regards if there's anything that the Western Workaround has an underground along your frontage, we would be looking for those to be underground. I think Old Georgetown had some, at least just from the street views. I didn't see anything else on Banneker or Grant Park.
Okay. Okay.
Discuss the building loading dock. I know that's
Yeah.
we've been talking about that access point for a while, so give it over to Eric to just speak. We're looking for it to come from be relocated to the internal private drive or private street to kind of remove that access off of Banneker.
Got it. So yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about this previously, and you know, we met with you guys a couple times to go through it all. We studied it physically. We can make it work physically. We still think though that compromises the overall site design, and more specifically compromises, you know, the through block connection, which again we really think is an important aspect to our to the site plan. If you wouldn't mind just zooming out for a second so I can speak a little bit more to that. So with the way building B is designed, and because we really can't get truck turning movements to come off of Old Georgetown, most of the loading is going to have to come in off of Grand Park Avenue. And so based on geometry of the building, the way the roads kind of, you know, angled, the grades, kind of how all that's shaken out on the east side of the site, trucks are going to have to turn in and basically pretty much stage, if you will, on the Woonerf, right, in the very middle of the site where all the pedestrians are coming to get to buildings B and C in order to back into the loading dock for building B. In addition to that, the way the grades are working, we're having a really hard time figuring out how to get the loading dock elevation to work with the existing grades, because the grade is sloping west to east at this point fairly aggressively.
Yeah.
Like the ground floor of building B is actually partially submerged in that corner by like 6 feet or something like
The
that.
southeast corner.
Yeah. So it would really impact, you know, the sidewalk that we have over there, you know, the access through, you know, through the middle of the site for pedestrians. We just think it creates a conflict that would really impact kind of what we're trying to create there in the middle of the site. So our proposal, we'd like to continue with building B access on Grand Park. I think it creates less conflicts with pedestrians and kind of overall site flow through the site. You know, there's really not a lot of activity that's going to be on that north side of the site there. So we don't really see it as impacting too much, you know, kind of what we're doing and what, you know, what's happening on the other side. I know they got a bunch of retail on the other side of the street, but I mean, the master plan intent is that north side of the street's really the kind of the pedestrian walkway, right, with the wider sidewalk and stuff. So, I mean, we're happy to continue discussing it. I mean, we're open to ideas. I mean, we've spent a lot of time looking at this, and we still think that, you know, for building B, it makes the most sense to have that on the north side of the building off Banneker.
Chris, if I may jump, like, for building C, like
Yes.
how the truck goes into the loading, and isn't it would be the same way that they have to drive all over the Warner?
Staging to reverse and pull in, they're towards Old Georgetown. So they're basically between the parking garage and building C, and then they pull in. For building B, their position would start through the Warnoff, and then they would back in from that
Back.
location. Yeah. And you know, I think there was comments about, you know, enhancing or making sure that we had trees and sidewalks across this, you know, east-west accessing. That's absolutely the way we see it, right? Having the ability for pedestrians to flow east-west in addition to north-south. And we see this area between building A and building B being an active space for pedestrians.
Right.
If I just have a question, logistically, do we have to decide this with this application? Because you're not building that building right now.
But it's a preliminary plan, so like if the access points get set, I think we sort of have to decide it.
Yeah, with the sketch and circulation.
Mention here, as we noted before, is that, you know, Bannock is supposed to be a very significant east-west street for the whole plan area, not just development. It's called Market Street Promenade, and we're really trying to locate active uses along it on both sides of the street. And we understand, like, you all don't have a lot of doors opening. I think that's a compromise that we've kind of arrived at with you all, given your program sort of requirements. We're still trying to minimize, you know, completely inactive and service frontages along that street. And so there's Banneker, and then there's this parallel street that you're creating. And even in the way the private road A is currently designed, it's really serving two purposes. And that, I think you guys are struggling with that yourself, is that you want this to be a very pedestrian-oriented WUNERF, but it's also the main access to this parking garage that has all the parking for this project in it. It's going to have parking for all park in it. So it is going to have a lot of car traffic on it. So I think that's kind of what is at the table here, is this tension that, is this really going to be a pedestrian space in the way we are talking about it? Or is it going to be more of an alley, service road that services these very functional aspects that the buildings also need? And I think if this was just an alley, and then it would put a lot more pressure on Banneker to not have loading and things like that on it. Whereas if we are trying to create this pedestrian street on it, then there's a slightly different approach maybe to Banneker that can be discussed. But right now, it's two type of streets along its length. It is kind of like a WUNERF between building A and building B, but it quickly becomes an alley between the garage and building C. And that's kind of what we are trying to figure out, I think, with you all, how to solve this problem. There's some contradicting pressures here on the side that we're trying to figure out. And you're right, it's preliminary and site together. The curb cuts have to be figured out. So we have to figure it out.
Atul, this is Ian at VICA. I do agree with you. It's a complex issue to try to resolve. I think what Stonebridge was envisioning was a campus, setting, if you will, that there would be a synergy between buildings A, B, and C, having each of their main lobbies located around that WUNERF and garage access for the people who are going to be working in these facilities. So I think that was the worry for backing in, like Matt was describing and Brett was describing, for loading on building B. Knowing that we've got that through block connection, trying to get across Banneker to the Silverstone through block, I think that I see that as more of the heavier pedestrian traffic to go between the park and points north versus an east-west pedestrian movement. So that's why we felt that it would make more sense to have limited loading activity with a loading manager for building B's use. And like I was saying, to start with, it is complex because really it's almost like from the Warner east, it is a very mixed, vehicular, but mostly pedestrian space. And then from the Warner west, it's really more alley-like with loading and garage access.
And I think what we are trying to suggest is that if you're thinking of putting loading onto the primary pedestrian spine of the plan area, then you should really treat your driveway as a Wooner along its entire length. And Ian, I think there'll be a lot of people parking in this garage who will be going to Wall Park. They will exit out of the garage. They will walk along the western edge of the Wooner and try to get to that through block connection and get to the park. So currently, I think it's two types of streets and the loading is off on another street. And what we are suggesting is you either take an approach that this whole thing is a utilitarian roadway, and so all the loading and everything is off of it, and you really focus on the public streets as the primary pedestrian movement and the through block connection, or you try to consider the entire length of the street as a pedestrian scaled, pedestrian designed Wooner that gives the primary sort of use of the space to the pedestrians. And currently there are, things like lack of adequate sidewalks, lack of street trees along the western portion of it that don't meet that intent. So I think we're just trying to suggest that we can be flexible on the loading dock entrance if the Wooner itself is designed as a Wooner along its entire length. So it serves the purpose that would be mitigated by placing a loading dock on a very public street. I hope that my ramblings are making.
When you say Wooner, Atul, just for the benefit of the audience, you're speaking of the east-west street or?
Yeah.
The private road A,
The east-west, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
east-west
I mean,
street.
But I think what's not conveyed through this picture, and probably would be through Brett's explanation and his plan, is that the garage's lobby or pedestrian area, if you will, is in the northeastern corner. So the pedestrians that are coming from their spaces to go to Wall Park aren't traveling along that whole northern side of the garage. They're only coming out at that northeast corner.
Well, Ian, the people are going to want to get out of a dark garage as quickly as they can. That's what people do. So if they park at that level, which is at level with private drive A, they're going to come out and walk along the street as opposed to walk inside a ramped garage and get to the elevator core as you're suggesting. So that's kind of where I think some of our concerns are coming from.
Yeah, I think, one of the benefits of this plan area and the way that the sector plan was laid out was just pedestrian sort of priority pretty much is throughout. Maybe as you are designing that Warner, which sounds like it's going to be a private street, you're working with DOT and you're working with Troy, and Troy's pulling in the urban designers to make sure that it's functioning in a way that accommodates all modes, because with the pedestrians is like the number one, because I think we recognize that there's a lot you're trying to do, but the shared street does have some great benefits, and that typically it has like a flush curb, so like you can kind of accommodate all modes in a smaller space, which is really great. And so I'm actually wondering if like some more design detail needs to kind of be worked out before we, but the nice thing is we don't have to do that right now because we have a little bit of time before you get to the board to kind of work out those details.
Okay.
I think what you're suggesting seems where the conflict is that essentially that middle street seems to be more of an alley with a very nice green open space inward coming across it going north-south. The conflict is trying to make the east-west after that crossing something special, and I don't think it necessarily can be that. So because of all the, you know, the parking and the services and so on.
Mhm.
The other thing is that as you suggested, as you stated, I think, you know, Banneker is going to be a very, very important pedestrian street.
Mhm.
Very important, particularly on the other side. And I would suggest particularly coming down from that other side across the crosswalk to that corner where you really only have the quote unquote only public space besides the lobbies on these buildings. And so that corner is very important as well. And with a loading zone right next to that, it immediately kind of kills the rest of that street as far as the pedestrian.
You're talking about the northeast corner of
Yep.
Building B.
Building B, yeah.
And so I think that's, you know, all of that kind of comes together to suggest, and I think what Atul said pretty clearly is that, you know, then you have the conflict
Mhm.
of the alley.
Mhm.
And so what do we do with the alley? And I just think that needs to be, we need to think about that further. And I think, you know, we really need to follow the master plan on Banneker and make it as special, absolutely special as that other side is going to be. And if it's all said and done over there, dynamite, and I think it will help. I mean, your people are gonna wanna cross and go over to that, I would imagine, frequently.
Mhm.
So, all of that, you know, we need to enliven that street as much as possible and without service doors.
I think we just need to see an alternative, perhaps, iteration of this where I think first you'll have to show us what you just said, which is if the loading dock is in the street, what is that doing? And then the second thing we probably need to look at is a version of the shared street or private road A, which is designed in its entirety as a shared street, and has a loading dock on Banneker that is as compact as possible, as tight as possible. And then when we look at those two things, then we can work with you to get to a decision that works for everybody.
Okay. Okay.
Carrie, does that?
I was just going to ask them if it was clear. Basically, what we're saying is Banneker loading dock can stay. However, it can stay on the condition that that shared street, the east-west street, is more of a shared street. And we have some, if it's helpful, we can show you some examples
Yeah.
Of where we think that works. Obviously, having trees is so important to that
Mhm.
experience. Having a slow area that people
Right.
can drive, but not at high speeds.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, pedestrians first, basically, throughout that corridor. And so the activation is also important at the ground level. And I know that's sort of a further detail, but those things are all coming together. But hopefully that gives you a pretty clear direction of what we're saying.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the west half has always been kind of a harder design piece for us just because of the, you know, the garage is kind of a fixed width and you kind of want your building to be a fixed width and it's just tight
Yeah.
in there.
Well, and it's a three-dimensional problem, I think.
Yeah.
You know, right now, at least in the elevations, the garage is pretty bare. So
Yeah.
if we are talking about this as a shared street that along the entire length of the block, so we can accommodate the loading dock somewhere else, then that garage needs to interact with the street in a better way.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, the most immediate case study of this that comes to my mind is there is a service drive at the wharf, which is not the Water Street. It's parallel to the Water Street and is literally for servicing all those buildings.
Mhm.
But the way it's designed, it's still very pedestrian oriented.
Mhm.
It all has this, you know, everything is at the same level. There's no curves, there's no drops. They have trees, they have architecture that creates some gateways and other things. They have some art along parking and service doors and things like that. They're all really create a walkable space along the entire length of it. And it's not because it's a wide space, it's because it's a carefully considered three-dimensional problem.
Mhm.
So that's what we are trying to suggest is that if the loading dock has to stay on Banneker, A, the loading dock should be really shown as tight as possible at this stage because the building's not being built. And B, that the whole private drive A has to be really focused on the pedestrian experience.
Okay.
It would be good for us to understand what the complications are for placing the loading dock on private road A. So that we can also present that to the board and defend that at the board because the board's gonna have questions about this.
Okay, well, let us take a couple days to kind of come up with some sketches. We can pull the old ones that we did from the fall, Brett, on the interior stuff. And really study kind of that west half, and then we'll regroup with you guys to.
Another project that's under review right now that I think has some similarities might be, or is it 5500 Wisconsin? That has a 5500 Wisconsin. I mean, the drawings are all public. You guys can look it up. It does have a similar condition. There's a through block connection.
One in Friendship Heights.
In Friendship Heights.
Okay. So you
It
don't
has,
okay. I was like 55. Yeah.
it has, parking and loading entrances
Yeah.
off of the space. There's some lobbies and things, and I think that applicant team is working with us
Okay.
extensively to make that a pedestrian-focused experience.
Brooks Brothers site.
Yeah. Okay.
So the latest version that's online has your comments incorporated?
So I believe so.
Okay. We'll look at it.
Or local. Without all the complications of working with the village.
Yeah, ours is easier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Troy, is that, I think we covered the,
Yeah, that covers at least the transportation half. If there's, I didn't have any other major conflicts, I guess, that were that we missed.
Ian, did you have anything else on transportation?
I don't believe so.
We had some thought were minor suggestions on the architecture, so that's follow-up comments or questions.
I think we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can jump to the comments at this point. I think what I had structured with the stormwater management facility, I think that was that's at least tied to this work program, at least to the site plan. So I know that the original comment was that that should be relocated back onto your site.
Yeah.
And so of course that that component is tied to and also facility.
Right. But just to be clear, I mean, there will need to be some stormwater management over the roadway. And I believe it's fair to accommodate some of the stormwater management for the parking of the building to replace the wall park surface slot, which is my understanding the way it was organized with the tables. That was our kind of original intent. I think I communicated unclearly to my team, which is why showed the whole garage there.
Yeah, I think there may be some room for a discussion along those lines. Sort of the sort of standard starting point is looking at parkland, and if we are using parkland to provide stormwater treatment for another private development, it's using parkland to a private benefit.
Yes,
the public. So
that is not our intent. Yes.
So I don't know that. I think the initial take that we had in looking at the drawings was it looked like it's hard to see that there. And I hear what you're saying about that eventually the access drive will require some, and that there's probably that there may be a way to find some combination there. So I think it's something to keep talking about. But certainly would be looking to, for any to end up on parkland, it's going to have to be related to the driveway and the things as well. So.
Okay. I guess it kind of like falls into like the next part with the access road where we're separating out the process. Essentially, I think we've all agreed at least it's going to be some type of mandatory referral process. The thought of that mandatory referral, we will be probably looking for that to kind of go to the board at the same time as this application goes. It's a 60-day process, so we will be looking for that to kind of be synced up with this joint application.
So, Henry, like procedurally, I mean, Parks Department takes that to the board, not like an applicant, but we need to get you plans and drawings.
No, we're looking at this as though the county
Okay.
applying for a project on parkland, and that they would be the applicant for a referral.
So we
We
need to
would-
work
we'd
with
do it.
with
Yeah.
DGS.
We would do
Okay.
it on behalf of DGS.
And so that kind of addresses the stormwater management. That if the stormwater management is being tied to the road and that mandatory referral is facilitating the road, that's kind of like I'm looking at like all together. So
Right, yeah, as we've discussed, figuring those two pieces out, and then because there's a lot of intersection on how they combine, but
like guess even with forest conservation, at least with that stormwater management facility, be kind of tied to the mandatory rural forest conservation, but also the forest conservation plan tied to your site plan, phase one. Because the LOD, depending on where the LOD is.
Yeah, yeah. I think, Ian, you looked at that, right? I mean, there is an approved forest conservation plan under Gables, and I think,
There is. Aside from the LOD that is on the Parks property, and I'll get to that in 1 second, we are a smaller LOD than we were with Gables. And I think most of that has to do with the land that is now already taken over by right of way. We just have we had other elements that we were reaching out to for utility connections that we no longer need because the utilities have all been relocated and done. But our LOD is smaller. The certificate of compliance covers more than we would need.
Stated otherwise for like the sketch, site plan, preliminary plan, work component, FCP. But for the roadway and impacts on parks, that needs to be studied through mandatory referral.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, you might need to update that FCP though, just to show what the existing conditions will be.
We did. We submitted that.
And I guess that's where, because I don't know if that stormwater management facility or that LOD that's being shown that is being accepted by parks at this time. So I think that's kind of where that dynamic is going to be like flushed out. But right. So I guess how to describe it? Like if the mandatory referral component with the road and access road, that stormwater management facility is changing or being altered to facilitate the road, and then you got a site plan application with a different type of stormwater management facility or something similar.
yeah,
We just need to.
yeah, so, just to be clear, so we're gonna amend what we submitted to make it clear that the stormwater management requirements for the private development, the sketch preliminary site plan is gonna be shown on that plan somewhere on our property.
Okay.
No idea where, but we'll figure it out, right?
Okay.
How we're gonna do that. And then anything that has to do with parks and the access road, that's all gonna be shown in a separate plan. That'll be approved through mandatory referral.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Because
And that mandatory referral plan is something that could be done pretty quickly. Mandatory referrals require a 60-day review. So the sooner you get that in, the better. We could potentially do that at the same time as this project.
Yeah, we just, we have a lot of work we need to
Oh, you do?
do.
Okay.
Yes, I understand there's confusion on the number of spots, number of parking spaces and
Okay.
stuff. So there's essentially been little to no design with parks on what that roadway is gonna look like.
Well, if anything, you could start the conversation and we
Yeah.
could try to knock some of that out now, just because there's so much, happening. Going back to the forest conservation plan, just so I understand, it sounded like you wanted to do one, which you've already, then you wanted to do a separate forest conservation plan with.
Yes.
Okay, that is that?
Well,
yeah.
if the timing, so in our thinking here, the mandatory referral is kind of the parent plan, and it has to be, the FCP has to be attached to that parent application, whether it's a mandatory referral, site plan and subdivision, or maybe even a park facility plan. But so you could do a two-part mandatory referral. One is for kind of the disposition part of it, which you've already gone beyond that, I think. I'm just wondering, somehow it's going to be difficult for us to, since you have an FCP that has to get approved with the park property, how we kick that down the road.
Well, I'm not,
You can't, it has to go with it.
yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Like, I mean, we understand that we're gonna have to figure all this out kind of concurrently, right? Because I don't want something that shows on the mandatory referral, then go have to change what we have on the site plan. So, yeah, I mean, whether they go to the board at the same time or not, I think we at least need to have,
Working on them.
this is what we're providing. This is the baseline for the agreement, so that we have comfort with the site plan application, that's not gonna be held.
But it sounds to me like it might be a timing issue. So if you're looking at the subdivision and the sketch plan and a mandatory referral, I guess when would the mandatory referral for, this would be the site plan and the park plan for when that road comes in, that, technically, I guess that could have FCP if they did it with the site plan, right?
They would have to do, either it's the FCP either has to go concurrently with the MRR or it's gonna go before it. So you can't have the mandatory referral go first.
Yes.
So
Right.
and it would have to be covered.
But the FCP is not covering.
Right, so no, you can do two separate FCPs here.
That's what
That's
we-
that's kind of where I was.
It's just
We're to
cleaner.
link it.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that makes the most sense because there can be
It has to
ripple
go,
effects. And so I would separate this site plan out, do your FCP for this site plan that we're discussing today, and then as this second piece, do the FCP for the park.
Okay.
And the mandatory referral can either follow that FCP or it could be at the same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
that makes sense to us. Because the FCP for our site, for Stonebridge's site is it's already figured out. So it doesn't make sense to lump in all this other stuff that we haven't determined.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess, what we will be looking for, at least within your entitlements, we are, I guess, in regards to the preliminary plan, we would be putting some triggers in regards of the access road. So, and I know the amount of spaces, we'll probably want that to be established within the preliminary plan or in the site plan too as well. So in regards of that. So there's some pieces that need to be kind of like fleshed out before that mandatory.
And Troy, I think what I alluded to from your comments was that you did not want this potential future connection to be shown on this site plan?
So the sketch plan and preliminary plan should not show the road connection, because I think or at least show it in more conceptual layout, dashed line or something, because I know the access is going to change, the stormwater management, because they let the mandatory referral reflect the details of the access road and everything on the parkland. I don't think you should even show it on the site plan, but you can do the same condition of dotting it out. When we come in for the second phase, we can show that detail once it's completed. But at least right now, I know the access road is the actual determination where that's going to line up. It's
Okay.
to be determined. So
Great.
I don't want.
So we'll just leave the note on there. We'll take away the dashed roadway.
Yeah, because right now it looks like it looks like you're building it, so it's real detailed right now. So
It'd probably even just be on like the access or the connectivity exhibit, where we dash in all the different bikeways and pedestrian movements.
yeah,
It's like
I think it's fine to show it like conceptual. Like I said, we're going to be talking about it. It's going to be part of the planning board discussion. But I just like I said, I don't want folks thinking like
You
you're
don't want the board to be
trees.
confused about what they're approving.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Was there any other like major parks comments, Henry, that you want to touch on, or did we come?
I think most of the other stuff, I mean, we've started to work on them. We're working on scheduling to get together again next week, I think, to keep working on this. So
Yeah.
I think everybody is on the same page on all the stuff we need to be working on. So, which makes me feel like there's probably other things to spend time on today.
I guess the other thing was fire access. There's a 50-foot fire access requirement that looks like it's going to be part of parkland. So I think that's at least tied to this site plan.
Yeah, so we have, it kind of gets back to the roadway, right? The through block, the east-west road. The fire department obviously needs access on the south side of the parking garage to fight a fire, right? We can't really push the garage further north, right? Because that's going to pinch the internal roadway. The alternate is to just have a big concrete shear wall up there that's 100 feet high to get the fire rating that's needed, which I don't think anyone really wants to do because that gets in some of the design comments that we wanted to. So I think I kind of want to spend some more time talking to Henry about it. Just see if we can come up with some ideas on what to do. We need to figure it out. It's kind of my point. It's a lot of competing things, right? Interests that we need to take into account here. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I guess that's definitely something that's got to be situated within the site plan.
Yeah.
Carried over to the mandatory.
It's a site plan issue that we need to figure out. Yes, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
So I think that covers at least, unless y'all had anything else on the park side, and then we can kind of jump to the urban design comments and the architecture.
I don't think I have anything else for parks. No.
but you want. All right.
No, I'm not.
Okay, I can do it. There we go.
I guess the broader question is, do we need to discuss that here in detail? It sounds like you looked at our comments, which we thought were pretty minor.
We got Brett wrote
Sure.
down for, down
Oh,
for
yeah.
Philadelphia, so I think we should.
They're always happy to
Yeah,
talk
let's,
design.
because then that's less we have to do next week or whatever on these
That
other
sounds good.
complicated issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah, to kind of like summarize our architectural or urban design comments, like for the site plan application, I think you guys are suggesting that the northern where the building B and C will be, it's gonna be like an interim open space, so we just want more clarity on that.
Yeah, I think our intent was that that just becomes a seated, open lawn area.
And I think you proposed that it's not
Yeah,
off
no,
limits to the public. Is that-
yeah, we just want to make sure that it's not fenced off and it's
Right.
open for
Yeah.
use.
I need to talk to Gables and make sure they're clear with that. They're going to, we're talking with Silverstone across the street. He's using some of that area's construction staging for them.
Okay.
I'm not sure on their timing. I'll have to double check that. But I know they're starting construction here pretty soon, so they should wrap up before we do.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll come up with an area. I mean, we don't want it to look like a beat up parking lot, right? So we can figure something out there to make it, appealing and not
Well, and there's
behind a fence, right?
great
lot of-
precedent across the street from your
Yeah,
site.
right.
We're not asking major infrastructure improvements that you're gonna rip out when you build these buildings.
Right.
But a light touch to make sure it's open,
Mhm.
it's accessible, and there's things in there that your tenants and people around your site can use it.
Right.
Sounds good. And as far as like architecture, I think the main one was the screening of the garage. As we all know, the garage is the backdrop to the local park. On the eastern side, like you are facing your central green, and the northern side, like kind of facing it. On the west side is facing the roadway. So like the way that the elevations are showing, it looks very utilitarian. We saw that in some portion you are trying to use like a blue panels, like a cementatious panel, kind of dressing it up at the ground level. But we would like to see more kind of like create some sort of like a placemaking out of this building rather than seeing all the ramps and cars parked there. So that was one of the main comments.
Have you guys seen you guys have seen the renderings that we shared as part of our community meeting, right?
That was
The colored rendering
last year, correct? Like December.
in December. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we
Okay.
have some of those.
Okay.
And one of the comments was to provide those images as a part of this next submission.
Yeah. I mean, we will.
We could show them today if you'd like to talk specifically to them, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. So if we can provide it on a next round or some
You wanna
sort of
pull it up?
detail.
I can bring that up right now.
Yeah,
I can share them, Brett. Good morning, everyone.
There we go. It's good.
Yes.
Go to the next one.
Yes.
The next one. There. So yeah, so this was kind of well, I mean, you can speak to this.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not gonna pretend I'm an architect.
Yeah.
But you do so well. So across the entire site, we're looking at this lower area that is more pedestrian scaled, has a rhythm, a cadence to it. And so that was no different on the garage. And we're going to look at some of the other comments in a minute, but generally because the site's sloping, we start at one side at sort of a height, and then it becomes monstrous to the other end of the site just because of the slope. So we get a whole floor, nearly a whole floor between the ends. So we're at like two floors here, 3 floors when we hit Old Georgetown. with that lower base.
Yeah, but the intent was really to kind of carry that, like you picked up a little bit, right? Carry that architectural rhythm for base, carry that through to the parking garage, right? To try to break it up at the pedestrian level a little bit. I mean, we can definitely have some conversations, about like what happens above, right? And what happens on the Wall Park side. I think the submission that we had did not carry that base around to Wall Park.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So I think we hear your comment. It's a tall parking garage, right? It's a 10-story parking garage. So I think we can look at a couple different ways to try to break up the mass a little bit, try to screen it some. I mean, your comment is correct. It's going to be the backdrop for Wall Park.
It is, and we provided some precedent images as well.
On this side, where building C is gonna be what,
Facing
50 feet from this building, 60 feet. So
Yeah.
all those tenants on the second to whatever 8th floor are gonna look out at this garage as well. So I think there's some good reasons to do better with this facade and the wall park. So, and not all those things have to be like the most expensive screening things.
Yeah.
There's a good example of this in Pike and Rose, the garage by where Park Social is, in where along the public street they have a little bit more intensive kind of fin application that's colored. It's metallic fins, and it's the shorter end of the garage. And along the longer end of the garage, which faces Park Social, it's more of a super graphic paint and a very abstract painted thing that is way cheaper to do than applying those metallic fins to a garage.
And that's a solid wall. That's going to be future development facing Park Social.
It's there right now. It's a mural type of design.
Sure.
There's also an example in Shady Grove on the metro there, where we have a very nice, I guess it's more of a metallic. And there was an example that you all put in the packet that Natasha put in that is similar. I don't think it's Shady Grove, but it's a different place.
The garage is massive. It's going to need more than one strategy. We agree with your approach that, putting architecture on the lower floor is really important. I think it's important here. It's important when it wraps the corner facing Old Georgetown. And the upper floors can be treated in a variety of ways, some of which can be paint applications or graphic applications, and some of them can be more structural. If there's a secondary staircase elevator somewhere, maybe that can get some treatment that makes sense. But we have not seen these. So you can kind of see it's an open precast garage just like this, and it just has a super graphic on this side. But then on the street facing side, it changes the application to be more of a.
And I've seen that. That's like it's a built-in front. It has. I feel like it has.
Oh no, not that one. So that's another one.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Where's this?
That's a separate garage. That's the bigger garage in the middle of the development. This is a garage
We're
right
talking
next.
about this.
This is not a fan.
Yeah.
It's Stony Metallic.
Part of the site.
So, it might be helpful just to do some site visit and look at that. But
Right. There's some color in there.
Yeah, this is like the southern elevation of that colored one. The colored one would be the western elevation.
And the whole goal of this kind of with the sector plan is placemaking and creating a sense of place, because we know that art and activation is so integral to that. And then it also kind of ties in with economic development and creating, places that people want to be. So I think that's kind of the root of where these comments are coming from, is that's what the sector plan has done thus far. And we're really interested in seeing that continue to the degree which it, supports your project and to the degree to which it fits in with Wall Park as well. So that's kind of where all this is coming from.
Yeah. And the vantage points will be very different. So when you're looking at this garage from Wall Park, the upper levels of this garage are going to be more important than the lower ones, because there's going to be some trees and the aquatic building and all of that. On Old Georgetown, you're going to see it pretty much in its entirety.
Right.
And here, you're gonna see it along the ground floor when you're walking, but then the tenants are gonna look out of their windows and their C-suites and be 50 feet from this. So
Mhm.
I think just thinking around that and coming up with a strategy that makes sense would be good, and then we can look at it and give your thoughts.
It could be the same. Well, you know, hey,
Right.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I do want to say that the base, strong base that's projected.
I don't think you were sharing on the screen, but you were obviously looking at Pike and Rose's Garage 3.
We didn't, yeah, there was sort of a screen in the room. Yeah.
That's fine.
Sorry.
But it was the garage up by the Porsche and,
Correct.
Yes, the
Okay,
one
got
attached to the- yeah, the southern elevation and
So I think, you know, in especially where the Porsche entrance is, there's some ideas of continuing the verticals across.
Right.
Even though they transition from architectural materials to concrete on the upper floors, that just gives it, again, a break in the very long horizontal expansion of the garage, so.
yeah, there were some suggestion on the elevations for building A that we submitted on our staff exhibits. I don't know if you.
We saw that, yeah. And so basically the idea was to take this elevation instead of breaking it in half, break it like.
On the
thirds,
eastern
essentially.
elevation, would you mind sharing my sketch part there? If you don't mind, staff.
Yeah, it's just almost equal, not quite.
Yeah, but I think this massing that you are showing, it definitely helps us understand
See
it
the
better.
view,
Yeah, exactly.
Because that
Elevation was a
split,
little
I mean,
bit-
yes, it's in the middle. I think it's
Yeah.
like in the middle.
Yeah, so it is on a
Um,
middle, so we thought
yeah.
if it's the proportion would be like 1/3, 2/3 or something in that lane. Kind of like extend through one of the columns that you have base. We thought that would be a better proportion if the glass part would be narrower.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the real, we're also coming out. Like,
Exactly.
It's inflecting a bit, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we figured that later when we saw other.
Okay.
We noticed that your base is extruding out with the shadow. So that's why, like I said, those massing and perspective will help us understand it
Yeah.
better.
I mean, one of the comments was there's a lot of the horizontal. And this actually adds more of the horizontal to the east end. I mean, I totally appreciate where you're coming from with the approach. And you know, this again for the base, we really set a datum that felt right kind of on one side, and maybe it feels low here.
And then when,
Yeah.
I think it's the other elevation part, if you go to the other one, like we noticed that loading area at the bottom, that's also going to be very visible from the park and from Grand Park Avenue. So that needs to have some sort of like.
To some extent, I mean,
placement,
I totally agree.
Mhm.
Like, yes, that corner, a lot of this does start to get hidden by the bank building that's currently there.
Maybe by vegetation there.
Yeah, and there is currently vegetation. I think there will be vegetation. But I mean, what you're proposing at the base and certainly looking at this elevation, it definitely enhances it. I don't see any issue kind of looking that. I agree with the comment that the lower portion, when the diagonal goes through, seems, I don't know if the word was forced, but I'll use the word forced, and it's totally not necessary. So yeah, that kind of approach.
That's such a.
Yeah, yeah, I'll take that. Or energy as a design than simply squaring it off. So is there, I mean, what's the, okay.
Perspective also that the rendering that we just saw, I think also begins to sort of dissolve overpowering horizontal.
Yeah, the elevations kind of have that, but I guess they don't read quite as well as seeing it in perspective.
Yeah.
One of the things that the elevations don't do, which I think the reality of the material will be, is that the glass will really reflect sky more often. The elevations, the way we drew them, were sort of a light blue. In reality, it'd be a darker blue. So what we're reading in the renderings is that lighter color of the spandrel will pop more against the blue, but then when you get to the side where it's the darker blue on the spandrel and the blueness of the sky, those will sort of feel more monolithic. And so we intentionally split near the area where there was the most contrast for a little bit more effect. Yeah, there was a clear intent in the way we handled the color and that gradient.
Yeah, I mean, my comment on the angle, I think, was just,
okay.
Look at those angles, and I wonder, it's like a 15-degree angle. Why isn't it a 20-degree angle? Why isn't it a 10-degree angle? What was the purpose?
Oh, it's totally driven by the floor to floor and the spacing of the columns. So we can be, yes, like it's a very, like it is set because of, just setting up something that works with the building. So, and is.
Are you all considering some sort of certification for these buildings?
Yeah, we will pursue LEED certification. Planning for silver right now. That's, yeah.
Well, since that is the kind of the base standard, pretty much, I think the IGCC is going to force your hand to do a LEED silver building, whether you get certification, right?
Yes.
Is there an idea because there are some portions of the architectural facades that do have fins and some have more projections and less. Is there some sort of, I'm sure there is some rationale behind it, but it would be good to understand if some of that is being driven by trying to create a more sustainable building.
And we do shade it more in the glacier areas. Some of this was also to sort of feel like this building was a little consistent or consistent through glassy areas and areas where we had the higher spandrel. Obviously, and if it's not clear, the spandrel really helps to obscure that view of the equipment. That's why it's a little bit larger than maybe an office building might be, where they can sort of deal with the cavity between the ceiling and floor. So it has a little bit more depth. So we're trying to do something special with that.
I see.
No, we haven't specifically created broad sunshades on the south side to address sun.
Well, that might be something that look at to try to create some variety along this very large building. Wouldn't be, such a enormous leap to go from a silver to a LEED to platinum building, but will reduce strategy costs over time.
Solar panels on top of the garage. Screen.
I feel like that was a discussion early on, whether solar made sense.
Yeah, it's been thrown out a couple times. Yeah.
I know the garage in Pike Rose has solar on it, and they got state funding for it. So might be some financial incentive to do that.
And then I guess the other question or the comment was relative to building B.
Building B.
Building B and the massing of building B.
If you go to the first one.
Well, that might.
Yeah, that one. We were trying to see if you guys can wrap that corner because that point on building B is kind of like a very awkward looking at Grand Park Avenue. So we thought maybe on the ground floor, the building can wrap and create some sort of a frame for the street. And that might also help you with the location of the loading if the thing come to private road A in future.
It sounds like that intersection's got a lot of work to do. Got to adjust it up to try to meet
that.
Across the street, you're going to have to be doing. So.
It would take that area right now. That purple area is all stormwater management
right there.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah. Which this from the beginning we talked about having the park at the corner, and that I guess the east facing portion of that purple is basically a continuation of that. The hardscape goes to a point that it can go comfortably without being, unreasonably sloped. That street slopes up, and then it becomes a stormwater retention with planting.
I see.
But it's I think what's reading weird here is not the reality of it, because the base of building A is actually parallel to building B.
Yeah, we see it
where
with the
it kicks
dash
out.
line. Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like with the dash line, but then we don't see that on building B. It's like that point, I think is gonna be very awkward, the point on the southern east of building B.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is like, it's literally parallel, so it's almost
It
a
would be
straight
parallel
line
there.
where you read them together, both bases of building are related. I have
The
some
the
math.
towers
thing
are
I could-
skewed, but the base.
But the
is-
base
Yeah.
are
Yes.
framing the street. That's the intent.
And I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation about it. So let me
This might
pull up the
change a little
massing.
bit when you try to realign private road A a little bit better to.
Yeah.
I think that's going to.
That is true. It would take out from the area available for this.
And it might naturally just align your building.
Oh, actually, do we not?
I don't know if we
We
had
do
that.
not have that.
I don't think we had that one in the presentation.
Yeah, let me get rid of
But
this.
I know we should-
Yeah, I see
Yeah.
that
Yeah, so if you,
there, yeah.
like literally what the base of the building is doing relate. I mean, these buildings, the sort of the shift of B to angle up was really meant to sort of make these geometries all kind of feel like they're acting together. And those lines are, I mean, literally based on the same. They're parallel. There was, definite intent. And I mean, we don't have this image in here, but the base of the building here would then be the same as the angle of the building. And then the wing that comes out on building B relates to this, can you see this cursor? Yeah, this face. So the wing on building B is parallel to that.
Why don't, when we get back, we can send you guys these renderings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
We
would
have
be
some,
great.
some kind of white massing models from a couple different perspectives that shows all three buildings, the whole campus. So we'll send you that so you can, better understand how all that relates.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Like I said, at this point, we're not really like asking for that to be acknowledged. Kind of like determine after we look internally, like if we still stick with that comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and building B can be
Can be
adjusted
changed.
as site plan when you guys come back a little bit.
I guess I think I want to just the open spaces to that area. So, you're already kind of tight as far as the areas you're using.
Mhm.
And if you look at my comments at the sketch plan, you'll see that I like kind of told you kind of strike out some slivers.
Mhm.
Actually, if you could almost just, the public open space is really supposed to be an activated and usable space. So if there's like stormwater management, it's transformed, we really don't want to see those type of
I
spaces.
totally agree with that comment.
So I guess to
I think the person doing the hatching got a little crazy.
okay.
So
Don't look at me, I didn't do that.
I'm not looking at you. I just, what, if you want to hit me for making a off the cuff comment like that, but like, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to really see the areas, the internal views,
Yeah.
the open spaces at the corner,
Okay.
and really see like where we're at net. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really won't be an issue until you come in for like phase 3 site plan, because sketch plan is your overall, and then you got plenty of space for this first phase because you got the temporary painted lawn. So, but we kind of need to see it now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Troy, and yeah, Brett, feel free to stop by. I can smack you, but the the hatched area is in excess of 40,000 square feet, and we're reporting 20,000, so we have no problem striking those.
Okay,
Show them.
That's definitely helpful. Okay.
Yeah, graphically, we always show more than we need because it's easy to wipe it. And I always try to have a healthy reserve for a rainy day because the buildings morph, as we know. Things change, and
We never
until
change
it's-
anything, Ian.
Right. Well, it's just everything moves so quickly, and then until the last minute, I need to make sure I've got, enough to cover. So we're good.
Okay.
All right, we have 15 more minutes.
I think that covers everything on our end. We'll coordinate we'll wait on your timeline in regards to these reviews. I know you want to meet with DOT.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Figure that out, and then
And please include Troy in that meeting as well as Matt.
The question is, do you need a work session meeting next week?
It sounds like we need to meet on the roadway and the loading, but I don't know when is that going to be feasible to have what our sketches done in time for next week.
Can we pencil it in and then get back to you? So we have a chance to regroup.
I think we should.
Sure, who do you need in the DOT?
Yes,
Planning, anyone else?
I think that's it.
Sounds like a complicated project, so you guys are likely to put in for an extension anyway.
I was thinking we might be a month early.
Yeah. I'm gonna write that down. I
Yeah.
actually wrote it
Yeah.
We want to keep schedule, so I think we need to work concurrently with Henry and DGS to get the mandatory referral moving. Right, I mean, Christian,
Yes,
we want
yes.
to get to the board, I think, in June.
Yeah, it was like
Our,
June 8th, 6th, something like that.
understand there's a lot on our.
So you have 11 days to get your
Well,
submittal.
Yes.
what we could do is, right, we can skip, instead of forcing, there's, in the review cycle, there's opportunity for more than one resubmission, right?
Sure.
So we'd rather probably work, I mean, maybe we'll resubmit in 11 days, but if we're not ready, we'd rather keep working with all the stakeholders, everybody in this room, so that we can make one really good submission to keep our hearing date.
Yeah.
Regarding the mandatory referral, it's up to Henry, but one suggestion may be to just really have a very long meeting, sorry, about that topic to sort of, before you actually finalize any plans, because there's so many moving parts with that. And there's so many different stakeholders. I mean, Natasha's on the Mid-County team and can sort of help, you know, even if we're in like a work session, sketch out stuff, whatever, but I just think about that. I said, it's just very complicated and there's lots of,
Right. I know we met in the last week or the week before, and the kind of takeaway was, all right, we're going to regroup hopefully next week
Right.
to try to really nail down how the road, you know, connects from the front door of KSAC to the parking garage, so that we can start kind of putting some shape around what that's going to look like, so that it informs the submission. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am WC's representative, so anything for us. I hear a lot of you have more problem than us. I think.
Ian,
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything, was there?
Yeah, the only concern is about, remember the easements that they can overlap.
Yes.
Them and us, space between the proposed seaward and water and stormwater management.
Yes. Yeah. No. I don't think we had any questions on the comments. I think we need to look at that a little bit closer.
Very.
Yeah.
Like the comment I
our-
always we get.
Yeah.
Oh, we give to you guys.
Yes. And I think our HPA amendment is in. I think we're waiting for a response on that.
Okay.
When would the meeting be, if we can, for the sketches on the private driveway and Anacrits next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
What time is it?
Likely around 9:30, but you will send something out no later than tomorrow.
So and I know we're just about to break up, but Chris, I don't know if this makes sense. Maybe what we were talking about yesterday was the potential to try and iron out some of this private driveway building, you know, the bigger picture elements, respond in text and some graphics to make sure that you guys feel comfortable, and then have the final submission really have everything buttoned up. I don't know if that's possible or if that's something staff would entertain.
Yeah, I think it's what we were trying. I mean, we're trying to make the submission on the 15th, but if not, I think our hope is to have one submission, set of 2 reviews, iron everything out, you know, to make sure we're on the same page before anything goes back in. I mean, obviously, we don't want
that way
stuff in that we're not all on the same page on, right?
So that meeting next week is a follow-up to this meeting to specifically discuss the private street and.
Correct.
Is that, so we need Atul and Natasha and Paul there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the other topic that we had not closed up is the extension of the bike lane. So maybe we can also talk about that, because I think DOT will be in that meeting. I actually have a conflict because we have something at the council at that time, but I know Matt Fulton can be there, so.
Okay, we can be prepared to talk about that.
And Rebecca she'll get the invite.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey,
Oh, yep.
Christine, for the meeting, I need to see if Tim Couples needs to be involved. So we might need to reschedule based on his availability.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're shooting for Tuesday, tentative. The time's not set yet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. I am Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Margaret and Rath's Trust Property. The lead reviewer is Ryan Sigworth, and he will bring up the plan momentarily. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions based on the comments that you received, and it would have all the agencies here that you can ask your questions. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. I'm going to turn it over to Brian and highlight some of the major issues. And then over to the
I will say, Christine, you guys are breaking up, and it's kind of hard to hear.
Okay.
Like that's fine, but like the whole thing, it was like just kind of breaking up for me at least.
Okay.
Yeah, for me
It could
too.
be my internet.
Nope. Give us a second. We're going to switch rooms, guys. Okay. We're going to log off and log back on.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Would you go up to 3?
Yeah, let's just go. So good morning. I am Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for the Margaret Rath's Trust Property. The lead reviewer is
Sorry. Okay, fixed.
lead reviewer is Ryan Sigworth, and he's going to bring up the plans in a moment. The purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan first, and then we will turn it back to the applicant. It's the applicant's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Go ahead, Ryan.
So this is a concept plan for what would be a future preliminary plan application. I think the main issues here are the lot size for septic and wells and how to fit all of that with wells and septic and stormwater and the minimum lot size required for septic. The shared driveways, especially the one at the top, are an issue, and all of the shared driveways on a rustic road. And then the environmental features and the fact that there's no approved NRI on this property sort of impacts how that will happen. And I guess the biggest issue or change is the overall design of the subdivision, and then having to try to fit that into the regulatory structure. Both, I guess, this proposal and the sketch, which we'll show here in a little bit. I think that's generally the overview.
Okay. Are you officially flipped over to the applicant at this point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've been looking through the comments and you know, I think it was Dustin Mathers who issued the well and septic comments. We were going through basically what it would take to address those, and that kind of tied into some of the shared driveways and panhandle lot formations that we were using. If I held Dustin's criteria, and the big one there was the 50-foot separation between septic areas. I mean, the lot area wasn't a big deal to get over. Basically, we've relayed out the subdivision based on those comments, and but it's taken us from 18 proposed lots to 14, which is I mean, it's a sizable loss for the applicant. And our first cut at this really on the concept plan was to literally get as much area soils tested as we could, and then kind of make the subdivision work based on how the soil performed. So yeah, I know we were pushing the envelope a bit on shared driveways. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, cool. Here we go. So are you seeing the screen here?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So we have reconfigured these lots to be larger. They're all over 40,000 square feet. We've maintained a 50-foot separation between septic areas, and we've limited this access to the maximum of 4 on this driveway easement. We've also done away with technically with all panhandles. These are 100 feet wide frontages here for proposed lots 6 and 7. And then on this side of the world, we have one shared driveway here and one shared driveway here at the end of the subdivision, again, holding the 50-foot separation with the setbacks. We can fit all the wells in. We've tried to stay, without overlapping the boundary by more than 5 feet around any of the perimeter, and we've honored the adjacent well sites as well. So to me, I guess the biggest concern on our end is kind of the panhandle interpretation. If we were allowed to get another panhandle or to get one panhandle lot out here, I think we'd have a good shot at getting 3 lots in this general area rather than 2. And I'd like to get staff's feedback on that because I know panhandles are frowned upon these days. And our argument, I guess, from the get-go would have been that we were trying to minimize the number of driveway entries onto a rustic road. We've done the site distances for these. These all work. I could do another shared driveway entrance here on lot 5 and run a shared driveway back into this area if we were allowed to get a panhandle over here. So I think that's one of my biggest concerns, because that would take us to 15 potential lots. Might be a little less painful for the applicant, and I think it would also give us a really good sense of what the soil is going to do out here in every strata. I'm kind of losing a strip through here that we could otherwise test if I could get another lot in the back. So I think that's kind of my major concern, that the interpretation of the panhandle option and whether or not this 50-foot separation is really a set in stone rule. I mean, I know it's an option. It seems to be an optional regulation. It's like if the approving authority deems it necessary to avoid concentration of sewage flows. I may have messed up that quote, but that's the basic idea. And it'd be interesting to find out, what the criteria is when this 50-foot separation kicks in between septic areas, because that could also help us test the maximum areas out here and maybe get another lot as far as density goes. So those are my two big things, guys. I'm going to stop sharing unless you want me to keep it up.
No, that's fine. I mean, I would rather focus our comments on the plan we reviewed rather than the one that we haven't reviewed, the one you've modified, because there's just no way to provide any feedback on that.
Yeah, understood.
I was also hoping that we would have a chance to put up on the screen the design layout that we put together with to illustrate our comments, and if it's a good time, we were hoping to cover that as well, Russ.
Okay.
I think it addresses some of the questions that you have, and it also it just illustrates what we were trying to convey.
Heidi's also here, and she has some comments.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, if I could just jump in real quick regarding the 50-foot separation, Russ. So we want to start out with the proposal reflecting that 50-foot separation, and then we can work back from that once we go out and at least do the first round of testing. So we want to know from soil conditions, is there fractured rock at this site? Do we have fast perk rates? So if we do, then all the more reason why we feel that 50-foot separation is justified. So we really need to see and evaluate soil conditions before we start relaxing that 50-foot separation. So it's possible. We just want to get out there and see. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
So let's have Alex cover our design comments first, and then others weigh in as well as we go.
Sure. I would like to check with the applicant if you have any questions on the design comments, but I'm happy to also just go through them briefly.
If you just go through them, I think that'd be better.
Okay. So some of the things we mentioned, we had said that the stream valley buffer will need to be widened to current standards. Right now you have it at 100 feet. And so it may need to be widened to 125 or to 50 or 150. We also suggested a front tree buffer that you can see on the western side of the property. And so that's something that you might want to take into account as you're continuing to reconfigure the site to try to get your maximum lot sizes and numbers. We also suggested creating 2 loop roads that you can see in the north and the southern parts of the property. We felt that this could help maximize some of the lots that you're hoping to get on there while also preserving that tree buffer area for the rustic road. And also limiting access onto the rustic road to maintain the quality of the rural space. And so if you're going to be creating these loop roads, we recommend coordinating with DOT and Fire and Rescue to make sure you're meeting their requirements around the radius, aprons, and road widths. But ideally, we would like to avoid future cul-de-sacs and try to keep the configuration close to what we recommend.
Is the loop road that you're showing here, and I did see that in a comment, and I wasn't sure where you were envisioning it. I don't recall seeing this sketch before, but is the loop road an actual county dedicated road? Is that what you're proposing here?
I think DOT was thinking it would be private. This is our design. It was mentioned in the comments sent out, and it was uploaded into E-plans for you to see.
Okay, I missed it in E-plans. But are we talking about waiving road frontage then for these rear lots?
No, you would have road frontage on the private road.
Okay.
The thought here, Ross, was really to protect the rustic character of the road. It was road, and so we wanted to leave the existing vegetation protected as much as possible by having the homes and the lots towards the rear of your property. And this way, the existing vegetation would be better preserved and protected. We're showing a buffer in green that I believe it's 120 feet or so approximately. And then the access roads kind of loop, make the horseshoe loop that you see on the upper cluster and the lower cluster. And then just like Alex said, I think getting an approved NRI FSD is going to be critical, because that's really what's going to tell us what the environmentally sensitive areas are and which ones are the buildable areas on the property. And until then, this is a little bit speculative and subject to, those final determinations.
Your stream buffer will also have to tie in the steep slopes on the site too. So
I'm a little confused because we did submit a NRI on this project, and
but
we do have.
But it's not approved yet.
I think it was just received. Funny you mentioned, I just got the task today. So nobody has reviewed it yet. It has not been distributed.
Okay, but our stream buffer does take into account the adjacent side slopes, and we did do it isn't just slapped on there based on the a standard width. So I think our stream buffers are probably pretty good. But yeah, we'll wait till we get the approved NRI to finalize that answer, of course.
Russ, this is Atul. I'm an assistant to the deputy director here. Just wanted to add a couple more thoughts to what we've already shared. We are trying to protect the character of the rustic road, but at the same time, also we were thinking of how we could give you access to some of the deeper portions of the site without having to get into a situation where you have too many lots off of a pipe stem or a flag lot. So that's kind of the part of the sort of exercise here. And then on the southern portion of the site, there are some existing properties that will need to maintain their access to Big Woods Road. So the intention with the southern portion was also to have a road system that preserves the character along Big Woods, creates developable lots, but also ties in that access with what is being proposed as a part of this development in an efficient way. So I just wanted to add those thoughts for your consideration, because I think we weren't just trying to sort of get curb cuts up the street. There was also some idea around a development strategy, which we thought might be feasible here.
And also,
understood. Thank you.
And also, every time you have one of these shared driveways, the fire access will require a minimum of a 35-foot apron. So just each shared driveway and each access point there creates an awful lot of pavement and width along the rustic road. And by doing this, you minimize those points.
Okay. Although, I mean, you're talking about the same situation with where the loop road connects too, though, right? I mean, that's still going to need to satisfy FDA requirements.
Well, just based on your drawing, that's quite a bit, I can't speak English today, a lot fewer access points.
Yeah, one fewer, but yeah, okay. I'm looking at my modified design, by the way, not the one you guys are looking at.
I can't comment on that. But sure. The loop road would provide, the fire access you would need.
Yeah.
Rather than having to lay out all these shared driveways with these strange turnarounds and things like that.
Yeah, I guess one of my concerns is the tree buffer is pushing the especially on the southern portion, when you push that loop road back, hold that tree buffer, we're squeezing out the septic area, and that's going to be the trickiest thing. So I'll have to take a look at this as a potential layout.
And another thing, Russ, that I just want to mention is that, we have our 100-foot setback from a stream to a septic area, but depending on the width of the stream valley buffer, no septic can be within the buffer, even if it's still more than 100 feet to the stream.
Yeah.
And maybe, okay.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah. I have a question about the tree buffer along the rustic road. Would we be allowed to put well sites in there?
Does that mean you would have to remove the trees?
Yep.
Probably not. We just need to disturb enough to drill a well.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there would be nothing against that if it, I mean, it wouldn't be a conservation easement, right? It would just.
Just
it
be a
would-
tree,
Yeah, it
plant a
would
tree
just,
buffer.
right, so it would just depend on access for the well rig.
I don't know
Is
that that wouldn't be a conservation easement, to be honest. I wouldn't assume that.
Yeah, we haven't discussed that far, from an environmental review. I think that at the moment, we're just looking at that as, an area of protected, that we preserve the trees.
How wide is that? How wide is what
It's
you're
shown
showing?
at 120
It's
feet
120 feet from
approximately.
curb of big roads to the curb of the.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more about the location, how close it is to the houses and stuff.
Right.
In the past, we've had sometimes conservation easements along rustic roads.
It's more about just making sure there's not any encroachment.
Right. So, yes, it's a possibility.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking that we, especially on the southern portion, we may have to do that just to maintain enough space to test for septic. My next question, I guess, for well and septic would be, we don't want to miss wet season. We want to get out there and get water table testing done. What's the best step here? Do we take a look at this, maybe quickly get a concept resubmitted, or what? I mean, what would staff like to see as next step?
I mean, the concept plan ends after this meeting ends. And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's technically no reason you can't submit another concept, but I think at this point you kind of have feedback from us on what we're looking for, and another concept would be unnecessary.
Right.
I think, Russ, if you're referring to preparing a revised plan that we can look at and just confirm that this is moving in the direction that we all are thinking, we're more than happy to do that.
Well,
I don't think you would necessarily come to a meeting like today, right, Christina? Like a DRC meeting, we wouldn't schedule that.
For questions about, no, concept plan is done after DRC.
But I think what Russ's question is, he needs to get septic testing done. Is he doing it on the plan he submitted, or is he doing it on something that's different?
Revised plan.
I mean, I guess we could look at a revised plan as a follow-up.
Or can I submit a revised well and septic plan to Heidi and just, based on this meeting and get that scheduled? That's.
Yeah.
That was my thinking, Russ, because obviously you need to address the well and septic comments that we sent to you regarding your test plan. And then when you do that, keeping in mind these other comments that you've gotten from staff here today, so that we're not going out and testing something that,
Right.
Staff is saying that's not going to work. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. Yeah, because I think, just big ticket wise for us, it's timing, and as long as I can keep things moving forward with well and septic, then we can work this other stuff out.
Hey, Russ, going down the road, this is Mark Etheridge. Just want to make sure it's clear that on a concept, we can't support a waiver. So that was one of the concerns we had with the small lots with the well and septic. There wasn't any room there for stormwater, so clearly that wasn't going to happen. This is new development. It's got to meet all the requirements of MDE and stuff, so with the ESD. So we need to make sure that when you do come in with something, keep it in mind that there's got to be a reasonable expectation that we're going to get full stormwater management on each of the lots.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And we've got a concept that's obviously going to have to get reworked if we change directions in this manner. But we're very cognizant of that. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions you got? You know how to get in touch with me. We can always discuss it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I like that you got 17 lots. That's good.
we were trying to get as many lots as we could while
Yeah.
respecting the natural features and
Yeah.
buffer.
I mean, but keep in mind that those lots are drawn without the use of CAD and calculations for minimum lot size you need for septic. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. It's a sketch.
And your NRI might show that that stream buffer is going to get bigger. So,
Well, yeah, the buffer that's on my plan was based on the NRI we prepared. So as long as it's approved, I think we should be okay. But I'll wait till we get that official answer.
I would wait for that.
Ominous. Okay.
You've got some steep slopes in there and everything, so yeah.
Yeah, I think we've accounted for it, but okay. All righty. Maggie Rast is the representing ownership here. Any questions, Maggie?
Nope, just taking it all in.
Okay. All right. And Maggie, we should have a call after this just to kind of round up and see what next steps are. I think that's all the questions I can think of off the top of my head right now. Anything else from staff? Any questions for me?
I would say keep in mind that any application you put forward will need to go before the Rustic Roads Advisory Board.
Yeah.
Getting on that agenda, whenever you have an application ready would, as soon as possible would probably be to your benefit.
Is that something just right at preliminary plan, or can we get in front of that?
I would schedule it during that review, just in case things change during a preliminary plan review process. But I would do it, as soon as you get some feedback to an application. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, again, the long-term question to be answered is soil performance, so we got to get there first.
Yeah, I just think you want to have the Rustic Roads Advisory Board review a plan that's very similar, if not the same, that the board would review too. That way it's, all consistent.
Understood. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Are there any other questions you have? Because once this meeting is adjourned, this concept plan is done as far as our review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other comments from staff? If not, then I guess we can close out. I don't hear anything, so we're good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.